Hey Junkamunkers, it's Kandyce here. You're listening to part 1 of the season 1 recap. We decided to split this episode into 2 parts for your listening pleasure. We won't leave you hanging, so these episodes will go up together. Hope you enjoy the show. Buckle up, it's the Junk Monk Podcast. Welcome to the Junk Monk Podcast. I'm your host, Kandyce Sloane, who you know from Instagram at Hardens and Hardhats, and today I have a very special guest co-host.
I'm Savanah Lee, who you know from your hometown anime convention.
If this is your first time listening, let me fill you in. I am picking up where the Drunk Monk Podcast left off, hosted by Keiko Agena and Will S. Choi. I was a big fan of their podcast and was really sad to see that they stopped making their show, so I decided to pick up and continue from where they left off.
So here's the deal. Will and Keiko did their show a little drunk, and we're going to do this show with a little junk. So I've got my junk food here, which is some very delicious looking cookies.
They are delicious looking. What kind of cookies are these?
I believe their chocolate chip is mine.
Mine are gingerbread. So they're delicious. Also, you must know that I have seen every episode of Monk, and I'm a huge fan. I started watching in about 2007, and for the most part, watched it as it aired.
I have seen every episode as well, watched it quite a few times through, so I'm very excited to contribute to today's episode. That about sums up this intro, so Toby, if you're ready, let's start the show. Thank you, Toby.
Wow. I'm actually super impressed with that, Toby. Savannah hasn't been here for the other episodes, but let's just say Toby just did a really great job, all right? So yeah, if you didn't read the description, this is a very special bonus episode of the Junk Monk Podcast. As we stated before, we picked up right where Keiko and Will left off with their show, which was in early season 4 of Monk. So I wanted to come back around for some early Monk recaps so that you kind of get the feel for our thoughts on the show as we progress through, and hopefully any callbacks that we make about previous episodes will be a little bit easier to follow. And who doesn't love a good countdown?
Exactly. Countdowns are the best, and that's actually very appropriate because today is the last day of 2019. So we will be celebrating the countdown tonight.
That is so true. I'm not sure when this actual podcast will go live, but it's pretty dang relevant to us right now. So that's cool. But yeah, we're going to do a Monk Season 1 countdown from our least favorite episodes to our most favorite.
We're also going to share some season highs and lows and some Monk-isms that we have learned this season.
So I actually think that we should start with the Monk-isms and then just make them wait a little bitty smidge for the countdown to begin. So I have a list of most of the things that we learned this season about the show, and I'm sure it's not all, but let's get started. So I'm going to start with the Monk's phobias. We actually learned a bunch of phobias in the pilot episode. There's a lady, I can't remember her name right now, but she says, "How do you get anything done? Aren't you afraid of milk, heights, dark, germs, and crowds?" And Sharona says, "Yeah, we're working on the milk." So there's about 5 phobias that we know of just right off the bat. And we do see very quickly he doesn't like to shake people's hands, which is aka germs. He also is afraid of getting dirty, and he's afraid of change, and he's afraid of flying. Did you notice any more phobias there?
He's afraid of dating.
Yeah, he's afraid of dating, and I think that's in Mr. Monk and the Other Woman. He's afraid of dating.
It's not necessarily dating. It's more the idea of moving on from a certain tragedy in his life.
Right. Okay, yeah. So that makes sense. So I actually have a section called Monk eccentricities. So I don't know if you have anything like that on your end.
Like just a little few.
Okay.
Okay, so, what is yours? What's the first one on
Okay,
yours?
so let's see, he's obviously obsessed about things that most normal people are not. Like, say, in episode 1, he's hindered by these phobias, right? So it's not just that he's obsessed over things. It actually hinders him from being able to overcome, you know, his obstacles that he faces, like in the line of duty. So like normal people are scared of things, but he actually lets his phobias hinder what he actually needs to do. So that's one of the things that I wrote.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, that's not a phobia, but that's an eccentricity that he has about him.
Yeah, and I've noticed that it causes him to be, I notice he doesn't try to be selfish, but because of his phobias, they kind of cloud his judgment. So a lot of the calls that he makes or like the things that he does comes off as very selfish, even though that's not really where his heart is. But it's
right, exactly.
Everything he does may come off as very selfish. Where like which actually I noticed in the Marathon Man, there's a scene where people think he's racist.
Yeah.
Because should I wait to talk about that?
Yeah, I think so. If that's one of yours, I think so. Okay, yeah. I'll wait for that one. That's really good. Let's see, what else do I have? I have a funnier thing that Tuesdays are chicken pot pie. They mentioned that one time, but I wrote it down because I know that comes up again later in the future. So that is an actual like fact. Tuesdays are chicken pot pie. I also have that he likes to touch things like light bulbs and poles, like light posts and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one of his, obviously it's like an OCD thing, but I put that as one of his eccentricities.
I noticed that, I don't know if this is really would be it's kind of an eccentricity, but it brings his assistant Girona in the mix. I was watching season 1 and I noticed that Girona and Monk, the reason they work so well is because they're quite literally opposites. Whereas Monk is super tidy, Monk is super neat, Monk is like super picky about things. Girona is not. Girona's not really dirty, but she doesn't care about germs. She attracts kind of like slimy people. They both, I'll put it like this. Monk cares a lot about things, whereas Girona just doesn't. Girona doesn't care what people think. Girona, like,
yeah, that's true. That's true. I like that assessment. Because you can say like, oh, well, Sharona's a normal person, but she actually is even more opposite of Monk than maybe even a normal person, which we kind of see later on with Natalie. But we'll save that. Okay, we also learned that he's a cheapskate.
Oh my goodness,
doesn't like to pay for things or his worker, Sharona. Also, he's very indecisive. Very indecisive. You can't give him more than 2 options or 2 options. He's indecisive.
Oh yeah, I wrote down that Girona is borderline, not really, like she does refer to him as her boss, but I noticed they're borderline friends because she doesn't call him Mr. Monk, she calls him Adrian.
Right, yeah.
And just the way that they interact with each other it's still very boss and employee, but they're on very equal playing grounds just by the way they talk to each other, the way they interact. They just seem more like friends now.
Yeah, that's true. I put that he likes things to be even and organized, also another OCD thing. And then also put that it's mentioned one time that he blacks out, like at times of high stress.
I remember that.
And I never really realized this before because there's this one main episode where that happens and it's very, very evident. So I never really realized that in one of these very early on episodes that I think it's Disher, he says, you know, maybe he blacked out like you do sometimes. And I was like, that's interesting.
And so speaking of Disher, that actually reminded me of something else that I wrote down. I don't know if I should save this for the end of the episode, but I wrote down just everyone's very skeptical of Monk.
You know what? I did not write anything like that down. And that is a huge point of season 1 that morphs very quickly into they're on Monk's side. But you're right. They are very anti-Monk. He's like the man to other people like that are bigger than Stottlemyre and Disher. But at the beginning, they are not on the same team. That's a very good like character. So I see. Okay, so I feel like I wrote down Monk, like little Monkism eccentricity things, and you have very good like character.
Yeah,
you've got Monk like character relations. I like that. Okay,
because I
see that.
Yeah, I wrote down. I'll touch on them more when we do like the overview of the season because it doesn't really pertain to just him. It pertains to other people.
Right.
So.
Yeah. No, that's okay though. I mean, you can still definitely talk about the character. I mean, I don't have any of that, so that's perfect that you fill that in. Let me do my. I think I have 2 more. So then maybe you can talk a little bit more about if you have anything on there. He has sensitive feet, because you see an episode where he gets a little tiny little baby pebble out of his shoe, and then. No, it was Dr. Kroger, and he's like, was that all? And he's like, yeah, it's been bugging me all day. So we know he has sensitive feet. That's a weird one. And then he also does not like his food to touch. We know this. I think we've seen this 3 times in the first season, and then it's definitely a theme through the whole rest of the show. So that's my last little monk-ism there. So do you have any character things?
Not really monk-isms, but I noticed that the main, which this is the thing with any season 1, but what season 1 does a lot, because I have certain complaints about season 1, but the complaints also kind of tie in. It's weird, but basically season 1 has a lot of character introductions.
That makes sense, yeah.
Like a lot, because I actually noticed Randy Disher is one of my favorite characters, but I found when I was re-watching season 1, I found myself not liking him.
Oh yeah, no, he's way unlikable.
He doesn't.
He's a kiss up.
He is.
He's a major kiss up.
He's a huge kiss up, because in later seasons, I won't touch on it too much because this is season 1. But in later seasons, you love him because he's like this character. But in season 1, the only time you ever see him open his mouth is when he's, I don't know if I can say this, but slut shames Girona quite a bit. Yeah, like it's to the point where it's annoying. I'm like, okay, we get it. You make fun of her being kind of.
Yeah, but she always zings him back. So you always want Randy to say something so that she can get him.
So she can shut him down. But every time he opens his mouth, you're like, ew, shut up.
Yeah, that's true.
He's a little weasel.
My biggest thing is he's a kiss up. Like, even when Stottlemyre likes to say, like, no, Randy, Monk is a good detective. He's like, no, sir, but you would have figured it out. And he's like, no, Randy.
No.
Shut up. Yeah. So, I like that one, yeah.
And then also... there's a lot of establishing details and scenes, like especially in the pilot, which, I mean, it's the pilot, obviously, but they really focus on, they try to build up Monk's character by establishing no one believes in this man. Like, no one, not the people that he's trying to help, not the people at the police department, people laugh at him, even Girona at times, even though she's, like, his, the number one advocate
cheerleader,
for him. Number one cheerleader, even she has her moments where she's like, okay, like, come on.
Yeah. Okay, with that being said, I kind of touched on it earlier, though. He does, in the first few episodes, the reason that Stottlemyre is even using him is because... I think in the first episode, the mayor specifically asks for him to come on.
Yeah.
And then the next one's like the deputy mayor specifically asks for him to come on. Because otherwise, Stottlemyre doesn't even have a reason. He doesn't like Monk. So he wouldn't call him in. It was people going over Stottlemyre's head that called Monk. And that's why Stottlemyre is so anti-Monk. It's not necessarily because Monk is better than him. It's that someone over his head is saying, look, you can't do your job. That's where the main conflict comes from between them. So once Stottlemyre, I think they make him get on board with, look, Monk is good. You can hire him yourself instead of other people saying, you can't do your job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like they did a reasonable job of kind of morphing that away. You know what I mean? I don't know.
No, it took longer for Randy, but that's just because Randy is also young in season 1. Like, he's very much like...
Well, they have a history. Stottlemyre and Monk have a history.
But him and Randy don't.
Exactly.
So Randy's just very like, oh, yes, sir. Like, oh, no, he's weird. Like, you could have done this. And you're like,
Yeah.
Randy, shut up.
Yeah. Exactly. Do you have anything more character?
I think that's it, character-wise.
Okay. That's good. We hit Stottlemyre, Disher, and Sharona. I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's my inner theater kid coming out. Is like I can't enjoy certain movies anymore because every time I watch a movie, I'm always focusing on character, and acting, or I can't enjoy something because I'm like, why did this character do this? Because that doesn't make sense, because in the previous scene it's a mess.
Yeah, that's actually kind of, Noah does that sometimes too, where he likes to talk about the camera work, and I never ever notice that kind of stuff. So I really like that you both are like theater people, because you notice things that I definitely don't notice. So makes for a perfect guest. So let's talk about really quick. I know I missed a few because I just know I did, but I have some of the catchphrases that we are introduced to with Monk. In the very first episode, he says one that I didn't realize was there so early on. He says, "Unless I'm wrong," which I'm not.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that is one of my favorites. And when I rewatched the pilot, I didn't realize that was so close, or so close to the beginning of the series. I was like, "Ooh, that's a catchphrase," and I wrote it down. Also, he says, "Here's what happened," right? Whenever he's doing his summations, he says, "Here's what happened." Okay, he says he's a guy, and then the last one that I have, which again I know I'm missing some. I was like really on it in the first couple episodes, and then I kind of forgot. But the last one I put is, "It's a blessing and a curse." Do you notice anything about that line?
Like,
it's a blessing and a curse. Does anything?
I mean, I know what it means.
But like, okay, does anything say, okay, I'm playing Quiz Savanah. Is there anything that's wrong with this phrase? You don't get what I'm getting at, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, so actually, in the first season, I believe he only says this one time. It's a blessing and a curse. The next season, they say it more, but it's a blessing and a curse.
It's a gift and a curse.
It's a gift. Yeah. It's a gift and a curse.
There we go.
When I was like, that's not the saying. That's so weird. So I wrote it down and then noticed they never said it again. And in this season, they never corrected it. Like they're wrong. But they're not wrong. They wrote it so they can write whatever they want.
They did it better, because blessing and a curse just sounds, I don't know. It doesn't come out. It doesn't come off right.
Yeah,
I guess.
I know.
It doesn't roll off the tongue.
Yeah. And it's not classic Monk. So it's a little weird. Yeah.
And things with like quotes and catchphrases with season 1, I think the reason I couldn't really remember a lot is because season 1 doesn't have a lot of quotes, because it's trying to figure itself out. Season 1, I've noticed, contains a lot of in the moment kind of funny stuff. And like there's one that I found so hilarious that I'll touch on when I get to that episode. But there's something he says in Mr. Monk Takes a Vacation that I find hilarious, and I laugh at it every single time.
Okay. All right. I'm excited. Okay, so let me go to the last little thing before we get started with our countdown. And that's what we learn about Trudy's case, right? So the whole premise, besides the fact that Monk is OCD and wants to get his badge back, the other main line of the story is that his wife, Trudy, obviously was murdered, and he can't solve the case. He can solve every other case, but he can't, for some reason, solve this case. So I have, obviously, first that she was killed by a car bomb. So, and he likes to say that a lot. Car bomb. It's interesting.
He'll just mention it. He doesn't have very good social skills.
No, he doesn't.
That's another thing about him. He has terrible social skills. So there's so many episodes where he will say, "Hi, my name's Adrian Monk. My wife Trudy was killed by a car bomb."
And then you're like, it's so sad, but you are laughing at home, and you're like, that's so funny. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
Yeah. I also have that Trudy is a journalist, so not necessarily anything to do with her case, but it kind of gives you a little glimpse into what possibly could have been why she was murdered, right? A lot of people's jobs. Oh, do you have any enemies? Well, I'm a politician, or I'm a lawyer. I'd have plenty. So I feel like the fact that she was a journalist kind of gives you some insight to maybe what happened to her. So I have that. What else? We have that Dale the Whale is not necessarily that he has anything to do with it, because I actually honestly don't really remember if he does, but you realize that is an actual enemy that Trudy had in her past. Like, we know that for a fact because we see in that episode Dale the Whale says it. Yeah. So again, he's basically just sketch right now. So I feel like that I just wrote that down just for that. And then we also have the fact that Monk does investigate the crime, right? So they talk about like, oh, he can't solve it, but we actually do get to see him a couple times at his desk in his apartment. He has the crime photos laid out. He has actual like evidence bags, I noticed. Like he has actual evidence Ziploc bags that have the stuff so that he can look at those. And then my last thing is just bread and butter. That was in the episode of Dale the Whale. But I don't think that has anything to do with the crime, the murder.
It has something to do with the case.
Yeah.
It's a little detail that Dale likes to use, which I'll talk about more when we get to that episode, but he just uses it to kind of mess with Monk.
Okay. So let's start with the countdown. Okay, so this is what here's the thing. That's another. Did I write that one down? I don't know if he says that in this episode.
He does say that.
He does.
I think he says it like one time, like once or twice in season 1, but season 2 is where he really starts saying all right, because he has to interact with people more.
Okay, I feel like I remember he said because here's the thing.
He's like, here's the thing. I don't do this.
Yeah, okay.
He does that a lot.
Okay. So, listeners, here's the thing. So we watched all our episodes. We put them in a nice little order from episode 12 to episode 1, and we're like, oh, this is my favorite, this is my least favorite. Well, we thought we were going to come together, look at each other's lists, and we would have the exact same list, okay? Or, not really. We thought we'd have close, right? Like our top 3 would be the same, top 4, our top... Okay, so Savanah shows up, and she says... Okay, my most favorite was this. That was my least favorite. My second most favorite is this. That was my second least favorite. And her third favorite was my third least favorite. I can't make this stuff up. I literally can't. That's what happened. So I'm like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to agree when we have literally the exact opposite favorites and worst favorite? So what we're kind of doing... so what we did was we did a draft pick. We laid out all the episodes. We chose our favorites, and we ended up, with the bottom. You know how a draft works. So now basically we have our little mini countdowns. So I've got my own countdown from number 6 to number 1, and Savanah has her own countdown from number 6 to number 1. So we're going to start with Savannah's number 6 episode. Okay, so there's 12 episodes in the season. Mm-hmm. We each have 6, so we're going to talk about 6 different episodes apiece. So, Savanah, take it away.
All right, so number 6, Mr. Monk and the Other Woman. This is the 7th episode in the series. We see a lawyer and his secretary being murdered in the opening scene, and we also see the killer burn a single file from the cabinet in the lawyer's office. Later, we know that the file belongs to Larry Grayson, and the investigation starts with him. Monk doesn't believe that a Green Beret would leave such a messy crime scene, so he has doubts. At the same time, Monk is introduced to Grayson's neighbor, Monica Waters?
Yeah.
Monica Waters. There's an immediate connection between the two. She does look similar to Trudy. Side note, they always change Trudy's actress, and it's so annoying. Like, I understand why, but it's an episode for another day. So she does look like Trudy, and she ends up being accused of murder. And then when Grayson is murdered, they think it even more than they did before. So ultimately, we discover it wasn't Monica Waters after all, but a guy named Todd Catterskill. He had illegally changed his rich uncle's will so that he would get all the money because he was a crap nephew. He killed the lawyer. So, because he knew that he would
spot the forgery.
Okay, yeah. Then he killed Larry Grayson to lead the police into an even further direction away from him. Monica Waters is exonerated. Her fling with Monk comes to an end because she's going to be with her husband in Zurich. He is at an institution for his own mental challenges.
Very good.
I don't care for that. I really don't care for that character because to me, she's kind of leading him on when she knew the entire time that her husband was like okay.
Yeah. When I was describing I described this episode to someone else, and they're like, "Wait, where's her husband?" And I was like, "Oh, he's in Zurich." And I'm like, "So why is she dating Monk?" And
why is she having dinner with him?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
She no joke
tried to loop the
invites him to dinner. I was like, what? And then she's like, oh, my husband's in Zurich because he has schizophrenia. And I'm like, then I'm not saying you can't have friends, but you're not friends with Monk. You're clearly on a date with him.
Yeah. No, she says it's a date.
Oh my gosh, she does.
Yeah, when he asks it, she's like, it's a date.
I'm like,
and then Monk's like, it's a date.
Date.
Yeah. So let's see. What do you have any notes of what you liked about the episode?
I liked that Monk kind of gets out of his comfort zone. I like how Monk is challenged because in the episode he has an infatuation with her. He has a crush on her, and the entire time all the evidence is pointing towards her, so he's having to decide, does he want to side with the people who he works with, the people who he trusts, or does he want to side with this new woman who he just met but feels such a strong connection to?
That's a good one. That was deep. Okay. Mine's not that. Oh, mine's a little deep. Okay. So I have a Sharona cheerleading moment is one thing that I like.
Yeah.
So we kind of have a similar thing like this in the pilot when Sharona talks him up. Monk starts freaking out because he's like, no, the scene's cold. It's already 48 hours old. I'm not going to find anything. And then Sharona's like, hey, you're brilliant. Let's do this. And so he gets on it again and starts doing that. That's one of the things that I like. I thought it was sweet. And then I'll see. Well, there's a funny part that I like where Monk, the old man. Oh my god. The old man is coughing up a lung or something in the funeral.
He's being rude. He's coughing. Okay, this old man who should have learned as a child to cover your freaking mouth when you cough is coughing on Monk's neck. Open mouth. Is disgusting.
And he's coughing. And then Monk is like, turns around, sir, enough is enough.
I love that part because Monk finally stands up for himself.
I know, and Sharona was so proud of him too. She's like, oh my gosh, you were so firm. That was so good. And I especially thought that was funny because every time my husband has a cough, I yell at him like that. I'm like trying to watch a show and I'm like, do you have to do that? And he's like, I have a cough, so yeah. So I had a special place in my heart for Monk saying, sir, enough is enough. It was so funny. Do you have anything else about this one?
Oh my gosh, the episode. The funniest thing to me was when he goes into, what's the woman's name again? Waters?
Mm-hmm.
It was Monica Waters. He goes into Monica's little shed outside her house, and he just goes, oh my god! Oh my god!
And they all run over there and like, Sharona's like, what's wrong? What's wrong?
It's beautiful. Because it's her whole garage or her whole like shed is organized and labeled, and he's just in heaven right now.
Yeah.
Just his reaction was so funny to me.
And he goes, do you mind if I say something? If I ever have a garage, I hope it's just like this. Oh. That was really cute. I like that part too. I also, okay, so there's the entire scene where Monk thinks that Monica Waters is the killer and that she's trying to poison him. And so he goes to the restroom and comes back to dinner to sit down. And she's like, aren't you going to eat? And he's like, oh, I already ate in the bathroom. And then, so he's like, I had some mints. And then she's like, you have to eat my salad dressing. You know, I made it myself or whatever. And then he says, can I ask you something and you tell me the truth or don't be mad? And she's like, what? And he's like, is this poison? Are you trying to kill me? And she's like, oh my gosh, why would you say that? And he's like, everybody's saying it.
Everybody's saying it.
It's so good. I'm totally butchering the delivery, but it's so good. She's like, oh my gosh, how could you say that? And he's like, everybody's saying it.
And he does a little, you can't see what we're doing right now, but he does like this little like head swish whenever, because he says that a lot. He doesn't say that phrase, but he uses that tone of voice.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's saying it.
Everybody's saying it. Everyone knows you did this. Everyone did. Like, it's like, oh, you know. Like, he does that a lot. He does this little head swivel, like, every time, and he does it. It's so
like
funny.
A little head bob, like, no, you didn't. Everybody's saying it. That's good. Okay, so this next thing is a twofer. So I did and I didn't like this. I did like that the girlfriend wasn't a murderer and that the whole story was a decoy for the real killer, and that we only see the killer for like 10 seconds through the whole thing, so you couldn't really figure out who it was because you really kind of thought that it was her.
Yeah,
but
she's a definite red herring.
right, but also, I didn't like that we only see the killer for 10 seconds. So that's like a twofer, right? So it reminds me of like it's just super random, but it reminds me of like a 2020 episode where you're watching like an hour and a half of the episode and you're like, oh yeah, the husband, he totally did it. He said he's totally the murderer. And then like the last 5 minutes of the episode, they're like, oh, we have new DNA evidence that says it was the milkman that we've never seen before. And then the episode ends and you're like,
I hate those.
oh,
They'd have,
okay. You know what I mean? So you get like invested in like, I don't want Monica Waters to be the killer, but she was the person. She was the suspect. And then they come in the back end and go, oh yeah, it was this random guy. All right, goodbye.
They do that a lot on Netflix with like the cold case files. There's like a few episodes where it's like, oh, it was just this random like there was a case where something horrible happens to a girl and then they're just like, oh, it was just this random guy that lived in the neighborhood who did it. And you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly. Do you have anything else that you didn't like?
Okay, here's the issue. There was nothing that I absolutely hated about the episode, and there was nothing that I absolutely loved. It was just kind of like a eh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it is your number 6, and it was actually, I think I picked first, so it was actually the last pick.
It kind of was a little,
overall.
a little slow. It felt like they were trying too hard to have like character development for Monk. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the only other thing that I have that I didn't like. I didn't like how they make Adrian like somebody so quickly.
Oh yeah. No.
So I know that like when a show's starting that they don't know if it's going to be a hit or not. So it feels like they always like pull out all the stops. Mm-hmm. You know, like, oh look, this is Monk going on a date. Yeah, but I feel like him dating someone so fast, it doesn't add to like his desperate like love for Trudy. You know what I mean? It's literally, it's the 7th episode in the series, and already he's going on a date with someone who's not Trudy.
The point is that he's so obsessed with her case, and I feel like if he starts to date someone, then he's kind of moving past Trudy, and he's not ready to do that yet, at least not until he's figured out who killed his wife, and then maybe he'd consider getting remarried again.
Yeah, exactly. And they actually, they say that. They say, I can't see, I think it's in that episode. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're talking about?
I think so.
It's at the beginning of that episode, and he says, I can't move on until I find out what happened to Trudy. And then he starts dating Monica Waters. So, yeah.
And they're like, okay.
Yeah, that was weird. Okay, so let's move on to the next episode. So this is, that was Savannah's number 6. This is my number 6 episode, Mr. Monk and the Billionaire Mugger. So this is the 6th episode in the series. And exactly like the title, this is the one where the billionaire mugs a couple who is on a date. We'll see, the mugger, oh yeah, so sorry, he gets shot while he's mugging this couple. Okay, so it turns out he's famous. He's a billionaire, Sidney Teal, and even Monk is bewildered by the billionaire's motive to mug anyone at knife point. During his investigation, Sharona gets fed up with her checks from Adrian not clearing. She actually ends up quitting. She's working at a lamp store, and she's the one that makes a big break in the case when she discovered that Sidney Teal writes an almost identical mugging situation that happened to him 20 years prior. So it turns out that the mugging victim, Archie Modine, and Sidney Teal were friends in college. So Teal back in the day had Modine pretend to mug Teal and his date so that he could look like a hero. So this time Teal would be the mugger, but Modine had other plans to kill his old friend and actually was in cahoots with Teal's wife. Messed up. Apparently they were lovers and had concocted this plan. So Sharona saves the day by putting some clues together, but Monk comes in with the cleanup, the evidence. Frady cop. Teal had hired an actor to play a cop that was seen running from the crime scene after Teal had gotten shot. So everybody sees him running away. Half the episode's about who's Frady cop, and it all had to do with this case, and he is ultimately Modine's demise. He debunks the whole thing. So that's the Billionaire Mugger. So that's my number 6 episode. So do you have anything that you liked about this one?
There was a funny, I think one of the only things that I liked about it was just the mystery was pretty interesting, where you're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And then just, It was kind of like, oh, that's cool how that turned out. And then the only other thing that I liked about the episode was this funny scene where Monk says, she'd rather sell lamps than work for me or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's cute.
He's like, she'd rather sell lamps or something.
Well, she'd rather get paid than not. So
Exactly.
to be fair, Monk, come on.
I know. Back on the cheapskate thing again.
So I literally have what I like. The first thing is the whole mystery.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree with everything you just said. So I won't repeat it because I have the whole mystery. It's pretty clever. Sharona the detective, when she investigates on her own. So she closes the lamp store on her first day on the job.
Oh my gosh,
and
yeah.
then the
She's
lady,
like, we're closed.
and she's like, it's lamp day. And I'm like,
wouldn't that,
all right.
Okay, but if it was lamp day, wouldn't you be open for lamp day?
I thought the same thing. Plot hole. Major plot hole. You would be open for lamp day. That's so funny. I love that. Okay, so she's a little detective, right? And she has her little notebook, and the lady's like, "Is this your first case?" And she's like, "No, but I usually have a partner." So I like that she finds the "don't be a hero" where the victim, or the mugger says, "Hey, don't be a hero." She figures out that clue, and then she goes back to Monk, and she's like, "Can you believe they said the same thing?" And he's like, "That's interesting." And she's like, "See, I knew it was interesting." But I didn't know why. But I knew it was interesting. I love that. That was really good. Do you have anything else that you liked?
I guess just Sharona being a badass. That's really it. Everything else about the episode was just kind of mediocre.
I did like that Monk, because Sharona quits. So Monk actually hunts down the guy that was supposed to pay him money.
Okay, no, that was cute.
So
I do like that.
Yeah, it was totally self-serving because he obviously wanted Sharona back, but I thought it was still a sweet thought. Also, okay, this probably is my favorite scene because Sharona, he should have just let her do it because she obviously wanted to, but the summation at the end, she keeps interrupting Monk whenever he's trying to do the summation of the crime. Yeah. And then so he's like, "Do you want to tell it?" And she's like, "No, you're doing good." And he's like, "Okay." And so he keeps telling it. So that was my last thing. Let's see. Is there anything you did not like about this episode besides all of it?
Just here's why. I don't remember a thing outside of like the things that I found cute. Just a lot. Yeah. That's my main issue with season 1 is a lot of the not a lot of the episodes, but like our bottom episodes are very forgettable. Yeah. Like
I definitely agree because when I actually go over these episodes as like my bottom picks, I don't really dislike them.
Yeah, they're not.
It's just that
bad.
I don't remember them.
Yeah, they're not bad at all. It's just like okay.
That's a very apt assessment, I believe. Okay, what I didn't like was that Sharona quits. Again. This is okay. So let me see again. What is this? This is the 6th episode. She quits in the 1st episode.
Yeah.
So in 6 episodes she quits. I mean, it's justified because you can't work for free. But really, come on, 6 episodes it takes. Like I don't like that.
I feel like that would have been a good maybe season finale thing, like
a cliffhanger.
Sharona quits. A cliffhanger because I mean she starts off the season quitting. So that would have been cool, but
yeah. Okay, so my last thing that I didn't like was we have a crazy Monk moment, and it's really sad. So he goes to Kelly Street's house when he figures out when he's like, "Oh, I figured out it's not an address; it's a person." So he goes to see Kelly Street, and then she's like, "Yeah, Mr. Monk, you've come here 2 years in a row." So this is his 3rd year.
I didn't like that because it was so inconsistent with the writing of. That's another thing about Monk is he has photogenic memory, or not photogenic, photographic memory. Yeah. He has like photographic memory. He remembers everything.
Exactly, which means that he doesn't just forget that these are actual crazy Monk moments, not like cute, funny crazy Monk moments, where moments where he actually is missing parts of the day, or so I don't like those types of moments.
It feels
I don't think they're sad. They're sad. I don't like them. So yeah, that's my number 6 episode. So what's your number 5 episode?
All right, so my number 5 episode, oddly enough, this was my number 3, but then when I came here, when I started talking and like really thinking about why I like some of the episodes, I was like, I don't really like this episode for the reason. Okay, anyway. It's Mr. Monk Goes to the Asylum. And this is episode 5 in the series. So the opening scene is Monk entering Trudy's old house to make her dinner. After being discovered there, he is put in a mental institution. While in there, he discovers that there was a murder there 4 years ago, so he starts investigating. He believes it to be the institute director, Dr. Lancaster. Lancaster does multiple things to deter him from investigating, by making him think he's even crazier, acting like he was acting like Monk stole a necklace, so he framed Monk for stealing a necklace, and then he made him think he drew disturbing pictures in art class. And when Sharona comes to visit he's able to convince her that Lancaster is no good. She discovers on the outside that Lancaster did have a motive to commit the murder of his fellow colleague 4 years back. Sharona gets Adrian this message using glow-in-the-dark paint we see Benji using earlier on in the episode. And then Monk realizes he has to catch Lancaster. It turns out that Lancaster killed his colleague because he was given the promotion over him. He stole some drugs to make it look like that the partner did it, and even used an actual patient as a patsy. Lancaster is caught when he dresses up like Santa as a cover for a patient obsessed with Santa. He's trying to retrieve the gun he used and is able to work as long as he wants because no one will believe that the patient saw Santa. But he catches him on the roof in the end.
All right, so you said this was originally your number 3 and you changed, so you obviously did like something about it. What did you like?
I liked it for this reason, but I also disliked it for this reason. It was a nice change of pace. It kind of introduced this whole other world of a mental asylum. I liked that Monk was being forced to work with other people because the first person he works with in the episode is a guy who's very delusional, and he keeps lying about his previous occupations. He lies about saying how long he's been there. He says that he's been there for a day when he knows every single thing about the asylum, and he's got a bunch of laundry, and even Monk points it out. He got a lot of laundry for someone who's been there for a day.
Yeah.
So he works with him, and then he works with the dude who's obsessed with Santa, and he's very witty about it because he even pretends to believe him so that he can kind of figure things out without certain information getting to the wrong person.
Yeah.
So I like that.
That's good.
I also liked one of the patients because I related to her.
Oh,
There's
gosh.
a patient that's super angry all the time, and so I was watching it with my mom, and I said, "Mom, not that I ever would get sent to a mental asylum," and she finished my thought by saying, "But if you did, it would be like her." And I said, "Yep."
Oh my gosh,
it would be like her.
Funny.
And they just also Sharona being a badass again, because Sharona has to basically figure stuff out because he's in this asylum, and so Sharona has to go and basically seduce this college student into letting her do research in the library, and she sits there for hours getting all this information, and she does a good job. Yeah. And so she just being Sharona, just being cool again, being a queen.
So I have 2 things that I like, and one of them is that Sharona scene.
Yes.
I love that. And so she walks in and she's like, "Oh, can I check out a book or something?" And the guy's like, "Oh no, this is for students only." And then so she looks behind him and she sees some books that say Chet on them, so she figures out that's the kid's name.
Yeah.
And she says, "Is there a Chet I can talk to? I was told to ask for Chet." And he's like, "I'm Chet." And so she says, "Oh, I went to a party and this guy said that you were cool and you'd let me work here." And he says, "What guy?" And she's like, I don't know. He was tall and he had glasses."
Oh yeah, I love her
accent.
It's so
and
cute.
He goes, Rich Kesselman or something. And she's like, yeah, Rick, what is it? Ross Tillman or something.
It was,
Yeah, I think Ross Tillman. And he goes, "Ross Tillman said I was cool?" And she says, "Was he wrong?"
Was he wrong?
and then a few minutes later we see her working, and Chet walks up and says, "What are you working on?" And then Sharona says, "I thought you were cool." And he's like,
"Ross said you were cool."
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Said you were cool.
I love that scene so much. Okay, my last thing that I liked about it was, and you kind of touched on it. So I remember on the Drunk Monk podcast that Keiko and Will were saying how they didn't really like Kevin Nealon's character, which was he was the guy who morphs into other people's with all the clothes.
I thought that guy was hilarious.
He morphs into other people's personalities is what he's doing. So they said that was really like random and unnecessary. But if you think about it, this episode was pretty dark.
It was.
It was pretty dark. And so I feel like if there wasn't that comic relief from like every single patient in that place, that the whole episode would have been really sad. Like if you think about it, there was a point where Monk hears this lady screaming and having to be sedated, and it was like a pretty scary part of the episode, just like in general.
Because that's real.
Exactly.
Because the majority of the people in this asylum are extreme versions of people. If they took like too dark of a turn, they would have upset a few people.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like Kevin's character, I feel like they emphasize how he takes other people's personalities, and I think it's fun.
I thought it was hilarious, especially when he was doing it to Lancaster. He kept doing the exact same like motion. That's why I liked this episode, because it was funny. Okay, I just thought it was funny.
Yeah. Okay, so anything you did not like?
I didn't like how random it was. It feels like an episode like this kind of came out of nowhere and came too early in the series, because it was episode
5? Wait, yeah, I think it's
episode 5.
Yeah, it's episode 5.
It's episode 5. Why is Monk having a mental break in episode 5?
Yeah, okay, that's what I put. I didn't like the premise of this episode. So the fact that Monk actually does go into the wrong apartment, like he actually does that. So we know he's like a little crazy, but I don't think, besides the Kelly Street thing, I don't think he ever has another moment like this, like in the whole series, where he actually does something, like Lancaster makes him think, oh, he stole the necklace, oh, he drew these pictures, which he didn't do those things, but he does actually go into the wrong apartment. So
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you said, how does he have a breakdown in episode 5? Like, how do you get your badge back like that?
Exactly.
You would have to change that storyline away, because him being afraid of milk or whatever, that's not going to stop him from getting his badge. But these kinds of things will. So they had to cut those out. Okay. Sorry, I had one more thing. So I didn't like when he was in the quiet room. When he was in the straitjacket and Dr. Lancaster tries to give him twice the limit of Thorazine. That was sad and very creepy.
They would not allow that. Yeah.
When even the nurse is like, that's twice the limit. He's got to weigh only 160 pounds, and he says, did you graduate medical school in the last 5 minutes? And he says, no, sir. And he's like, well, then do what I said. I'm like,
that's not how that works.
Yeah,
that's not how that works.
That's what I'm hoping. Like, poor people. I'm hoping.
I'm pretty sure that's not how that works.
Yeah. All right, so let's continue with my number 5 episode, which is going to be Mr. Monk and the Redheaded Stranger. This is the 11th episode of the series. In the opening scene, we see actor Willie Nelson as himself in a dispute over money with an employee. Next, we see the same employee shot dead in an alley. Only 2 people were there, Willie Nelson and a blind woman. Jason Cross, or Sonny, was shot from a very far distance, ruling out the blind woman, and she even IDs Willie Nelson in a voice lineup. Monk spends the episode trying to exonerate his favorite singer and ultimately is able to do so. It turns out that Jason Cross, years ago, was involved in a deadly DUI that killed 2 people. Those people were the parents of the blind woman, Wendy Mass. Wendy was the one that shot and killed Sonny Cross. She had recently regained her sight in a slip and fall at the supermarket. She took the opportunity to take revenge on Sonny and commit the perfect crime. Willie Nelson just so happened to interrupt that plan by being in the alley, so he ended up with the blame. But ultimately, Wendy Mass does go to jail. So this is my number 5 episode. What did you like anything about this episode?
Yeah, I liked it. It wasn't like my favorite, but it's also not one of my least favorites either. My favorite thing about it is, again, like the mystery, because you're like, wait, who did kill them then if she's blind?
Yeah, because Willie Nelson didn't.
Yeah, like it's obvious.
Yeah. I like how starstruck that monk is.
Oh,
it's really cute. So Sharona says at the very beginning, like, Monk, he's just a normal person. And then Monk says, you take that back. It's so funny. And then when he gets onto Willie Nelson's bus, he's trying to act cool. And he says that his bus is the bomb. And he's like, oh yeah, it's cool. It's the bomb. And Sharona's like, the bomb? And he says, bomb means good. Like he's trying to tell Sharona what bomb means. I also liked Willie Nelson. I like Willie Nelson. And his acting wasn't half bad for, you know,
playing himself.
An older guy playing himself. And he's so nice in the episode. So I really hope that he's that way in real life, because I really like him in general. So I hope I don't know. I felt like a redemptive quality of this episode was that Willie Nelson was
in it.
Good.
Yeah, like he was. Yeah. It's Willie Nelson. I don't even really know a lot of his music. I know him more than I know his music. Like, people just talk about his character.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else that you liked?
I thought Monk was really cute. I love the episodes where they have famous guest stars in them, like how in a few seasons later they have Korn in an episode.
Oh yeah.
I like stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I thought that was cute. I don't know. Nothing really was like bad about the episode that I can remember. Nothing was really like super ultra amazing.
It was another blend in.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was saying, the redemptive part. I don't mean it in a bad way, but that it's memorable because it has Willie Nelson. Otherwise it wouldn't be a memorable episode at all. You know?
That's basically what I remember. Is I'm like, oh, this episode with Willie Nelson in it.
Exactly. Which it is called The Redheaded Stranger, but still, yeah. So I also like that Monk / Tony Shalhoub plays the clarinet, because he actually played that. Like I read that he learned the clarinet part of it at least, so that he could do it for the episode. So I thought he was actually pretty good at it, and I love when Monk has other interests that he's good at. Like in another episode we see where he's a runner.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
So I like when he has other interests besides being a detective, because we know he's good at that, but that's not the only thing he's good at. I like that they show that. I think that's good. Do you have anything else? I just have one more thing. So.
Not really. It just, there wasn't anything I remember that I particularly dislike, other than, I guess one thing that kind of, I don't dislike this about the episode. If anything, I kind of like this about the episode. I like the person who actually did it, like the blind woman.
Yeah.
And see, I'm torn about her, because I'm like, yeah, I understand why you killed him, but the minute you decided to try and frame Willie Nelson for it is where I'm like, okay, you kind of lost me.
Yep.
Like, why?
Okay, so what you were saying, what I didn't like about the episode, that the blind lady blames Willie Nelson. If he didn't see her do it, then she could have just said she didn't know who did it either.
Exactly.
They were both in that alley. She shoots the guy. Willie Nelson didn't blame her. Like, all he said was, well, the blind lady's lying because I didn't do it. He didn't say she's lying because she did it. So it's not like a he said, she said. It's literally just a she said. Like, oh, I guess I could blame Willie Nelson. That's so rude.
You're in an alley. I'm pretty sure you can say, because like in alleyways, especially in that city, have many exits, many like weird twists and turns. So it would be so easy for someone to shoot him and run, and then have
no blind lady not see it.
Exactly. Like, she had like the perfect little
she still had the perfect crime.
Exactly.
She still had the perfect crime, but she went and messed it up because she blamed someone who was innocent, and then they had to disprove it.
And someone who was famous
and
too.
Beloved.
Yeah, like,
it wasn't like it was some evil celebrity. I can't think of one, but it wasn't like it was some evil celebrity that someone would think of. Like, oh yeah, I bet he did do it. You know?
Yeah, like Chris Brown or something.
Whoa, Savannah's dropping names. All right, let's move on.
Listen,
let's see. The last thing is that I don't like when Adrian doesn't get to play the clarinet because the guy uses his clarinet.
Oh my,
that was sad. I feel like they could have just given Monk that moment.
Like, I know. Like, come on.
IDK. All right, let's move on. let's go to Savanah's number 4 episode.
Okay, so we talked about this briefly in the one that we just mentioned, and it's Mr. Monk and the Marathon Man. So this is one of the episodes where we see that Monk has a hobby outside of being a detective, and I think it's really cute. This coming from someone who did track for like a year and then quit because I hated it. But this is the 8th episode in the series. It starts with Monk and Sharona being onlookers of the San Francisco Marathon to watch Adrian's idol, Tunde Mowabi. Okay, this marathon plays a large part in the episode because it's the alibi for the main suspect, Trevor McDowell.
Yep.
Is accused of killing his mistress, Gwen Zaleski. Okay, I could read it. I didn't know how to pronounce it. We know he did it because we see him do it. Mm-hmm. Monk knows he did it, but Trevor's marathon alibi is airtight until Monk eventually puts it together while watching the marathon on repeat. The issue was the computer chip that McDowell was wearing. So the computer chip that he was wearing hit every single checkpoint, and it was even very similar to Tunde's, making him a suspect. But the times weren't exact, so it couldn't be. Okay, Monk figures out that it was on the camera following Tunde, which is why it didn't match times with any one runner. By the time he figures it out, McDowell is racing to retrieve the chip. He never bothered to get off the camera car. Monk ultimately chased him down on foot and sent McDowell to jail.
All right. So if you haven't caught on, Savannah's reading my synopsis notes that I did not realize that other people were going to be reading. So try reading Chicken Scratch that you've never read before. That's basically what's happening here. So my apologies. Okay, so what did you like about this episode?
He was starstruck again because it's so cute. Because at the end of the episode, the runner guy that he idolized for so long gives him like a headband, and he gives him like
really
he gives him like a little pep talk, and then Monk. What I found funny is that Monk even says, wait, no, he doesn't say it, but the guy gives him his sweatband, and then after the guy tells him that he hasn't washed it since, he does not immediately drop it. He's so starstruck by this person, or by this man, that he kind of removes it from his face and then tells Sharona to like put it in the purse. Yeah. So I thought that was so cute. I was like, oh, he's not immediately throwing it away.
Yeah, I actually have whenever he meets Tunde and he can't even think straight, and I feel like this is like how so Keiko again from the podcast, right? She actually got to meet Tony Shalhoub, and they were talking about how she was just like jaw open for 5 minutes. So I feel like this is how she would have been meeting Tony Shalhoub. I like when Monk says the line. He's talking to Tunde, and he's like, "I've loved you since I was a young boy." I don't know why that's so funny, but I love that. He's like, "I've loved you since I was a strong boy. A young boy." It's so funny. Also, like when Adrian, Sharona challenges Adrian to a race, because she's always picking on him like that, and I really like that. Also, she might actually be able to beat him, so you actually don't know, like, is she faster than him? I don't know. Is there anything else that you have?
I liked that this was one of the episodes where we knew who the killer was, but we didn't know exactly how he, like, tricked the system. Oh my goodness, okay. So, as I mentioned earlier with Monk, how he has, like, these things that kind of cloud his judgment, so it makes him seem more selfish than he actually is. There is a scene in this episode.
This is the one.
Oh my god. Okay, so he goes into the place where they keep track of all the runners, all the numbers and stuff, and he immediately tells Sharona, oh, it's gonna be a line of people. Like, I'm gonna have to quickly, like, shake all their hands and then do a wipe. So he goes in, they all introduce themselves, he quickly shakes all their hands, and the last person that he shakes hands with just so happens to be a black man. So, per his usual routine, Sharona hands him a wipe after shaking a black man's hand.
Yeah.
So they all think he's racist, and so for the next 5 minutes they keep throwing shade at him. Like, it takes multiple colors to make a rainbow. And he's like, I love rainbows.
He does love rainbows. He's a rainbow guy.
He's a rainbow guy. It's just so terrible because he's like, I'm not.
We have people of all ethnicities, be they Black, Asian, or Latino. Do you have anything else? I think I have one more thing.
I didn't really have any particular dislikes about it. I feel like there were parts about it that were kind of slow. I feel like the whole thing with as funny as I found it, the whole thing with Monk, like, them thinking he was racist, I feel like that went on just a hair too long. I was like, okay, we get it.
I don't like that they... I think it's funny, but I don't like that they make that comment. Like, I don't like that they imply that he ever is racist.
I know.
I don't know. I just don't like that joke. But, so... the last thing that I have is I like whenever he chases McDowell down and he tackles him at the beach.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't like that he lets him go, but he's so proud of himself and he's like, yeah, Sharona, did you see me? I tackled him. I had a good 40 yards on him or something. And she's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Look behind you.
Look behind you.
So that was funny. But that segues into what I didn't like, and I didn't like that he did all of that to catch him, and then we were supposed to believe that he just let him get up and throw the evidence away. Because I don't mind when they make his phobias hinder him, but Monk's not stupid, so I don't think that he would have done that.
Yeah, no, they do that a lot, where he has like these out of character dumb moments for plot convenience.
Okay.
I'm like,
so I'm not the only one.
No,
you totally agree. Okay.
I'm like, that's like, you can't change a character's personality or
something to
like
fit.
Thought process to fit your, like, just have the dude overpower him, get up and throw the thing. Monk's not that strong. Like, I don't know. I'm not a writer, so.
Okay, is there anything else that you did not like?
No, that's about it.
This kind of contradicts what you said, but I actually like that. I actually did not like that they told us that Trevor McDowell was the killer. I don't dislike when they do that. I could care less. But when I was watching it back for the second time, I figured out, like, they really did not have to say Trevor's name at all. They give it all away when he walks into the apartment and she goes, Trevor, what are you doing here? And they show him in the apartment and they show exactly who he is. And I'm like, they could have, if they would have just cut that one scene out, that one scene, we could have had the whole mystery intact the whole time. Because then we would have been
I could see that.
Like, we're still obviously wondering, how did he do it? We know he did it, and how did he do it? But we could have actually, like, not known. Because that, to us, that discounted that, what's his name? Tunde? That Tunde did it.
Yeah.
Because we knew that
that could have been really good
Trevor
character.
McDowell did it.
That could have been great character development. Not development, but a good, like, character kind of
line. We basically knew that he didn't do it.
Exactly. Yeah, because...
So that whole stuff was pointless. It was only there because we get to see him meet his idol. We knew that he didn't do it.
Exactly.
So it's kind of... Yeah. So that was was that mine? I think that was mine, right? Oh, no, that was yours. That was yours.
Oh, yeah, it was.
That was totally yours. Okay. So that means that we're on... Let's see. Because you went first. So that means I'm on my number 4 episode. Right? Okay. So my number 4 episode is Mr. Monk and the Psychic. So this is the second episode in the series. In this one, we see a psychic named Dolly Flint, who has discovered the body of a missing woman who is the wife of Commissioner Harry Ashcombe. That's a funny name. She claims that the woman's spirit, or her aura, drew her to the crime scene, but Monk knows it can't be true because he doesn't believe in psychics. We, as the audience, know the commissioner is the killer, as we see it in the opening, and Monk figures out this fairly quickly when the man shows no grief for his dead wife. So the rest of the episode, we see Monk trying to figure out how the psychic is involved. When the psychic confides in Monk, finally, that she's a phony, Monk puts it all together. The commissioner drugged Dolly Flint and put her next to his wife's body after a mudslide made her unfindable. He killed his wife for the insurance money, classic, and he also had a mistress, also classic. A disgruntled mistress who actually helps them catch the commissioner in the end. She basically acts like she's dead. Dolly Flint acts like she's vibing with the mistress's spirit, which makes the commissioner ultimately admit that Dolly is a fake. and that he had set it all up. So that was that. Synopsis there. Is there anything that you liked about this episode? I think that was one of your bottom ones. So
yeah, I liked the ending a lot. I liked how they convinced the mistress to do it. I liked Girona in it. I loved how unhinged Monk became. I don't like how early on in the season it was, but I love how he became so frustrated and almost kind of not intimidated because he knew like it wasn't real, but it reminds me of an episode in a later season where there's a guy who happens to be like just as good as him, air quotes.
Chess.
Yeah. No, it's not chess. It's what is that detective guy? It's the one.
Oh, the other detective.
The other detective.
Oh my gosh, this reminds me of that episode so much. I get the other detective and the psychic mixed up.
The other detective,
like because I always think when that episode starts that other detective is psychic.
I know. Okay,
so I get them mixed up.
See, I like the other detective like better than this episode.
But okay, I like this one better. But that, I agree. I got you. I'm vibing with you on that. I think they're the same episode when I watch them. So that totally reminds me of that. I like when Monk, he has a bad A Monk episode. Monk little scene in this episode. Okay, he has two. The first one is whenever he confronts the commissioner when he's like, I know you did it. And the guy tells Monk, get out of my way. He goes, you're in my way. Because Monk is standing in front of his car door. Then Monk like slowly says, that's right. I am in your way. I was like, ooh, snap. Because this is the second episode. So we see him confront the killer right off the bat. And boom. And you're like, ooh, get him, Monk. Okay, so the other thing that is a bad A Monk episode. Why do I keep saying episode? What am I even trying to say?
Moment.
Yeah, okay, moment. Thank you. It's my favorite scene. This is his last ditch effort to convince Stottlemyre that he's right. So remember, this is the second episode. Stottlemyre is not on Team Monk. No. He's anti-Monk, and Stottlemyre pushes him too far. He comments about his badge. Like, he literally says, you wonder why you don't have your badge. Just because he's trying to convince him, he goes, Leland, come on, I'm talking to the best cop I know. You've got to get on the same page as me. And then Stottlemyre says, you wonder why you don't have your badge back. I thought you were crazy, but I didn't realize you were suicidal.
I don't
And he's
like
pushing
that.
his buttons. And then if you watch it back, I watched it like 3 times because I was like, ooh, get him.
Yeah.
But there's a line where he says, like, he couldn't just say, maybe we should start digging over there. And he delivers a line like so well. And then the whole summation is just like him getting Stottlemyre. Like, it's all about Stottlemyre. Like, you said I'm crazy. You said I couldn't have my badge back. But look, these are the facts. And then Stottlemyre's convinced by the end. And he's like, so how are you going to prove it? And then he's like, I need your help. And so you're like, ooh, we got him on his side. So I love that part. So if you can go back and watch that part.
It is. Yeah. That's one of the things I do like about that episode. I really do like this episode. It's just for some reason, this episode just didn't, like, entertain me, I guess. I don't know. I can't pinpoint what about it was. I liked the bad A Monk moments. Those were really good. Those kept me intrigued. But, like, a lot of it was not entertaining to me. I just couldn't keep my attention.
Right. So to segue, I guess, I think that was my last. I do have another bad A Monk moment whenever he's trying to get Dolly Flint to admit what her involvement was in it. He's like, that's accessory after the fact. You better tell me what's going on. And, like, it's very kind of, like, out of character for Monk. But, again, it's only the second episode. So it's like, is it really out of character? Or are they just establishing, how tough he is? But, yeah, that was another one. So do you have anything that you don't like? Anything else?
Another scene where it's not that I didn't like this. I actually like the scene. It's just I don't like this about Monk's character. It's one of the examples where he doesn't like disrespect Girona. It's just one of those scenes where you can clearly see how little respect he has for people other than himself when he's hyper focused, because Girona's paying money to see this psychic. She's trying to have a session.
I didn't like that either.
She's trying to have her own time. She's using her own money, and Monk is just not even thinking about her. He's just only thinking about, I have to disprove this psychic because of my ego, and I know that like I'm right and she's wrong, and I'm gonna totally disregard my assistant when she's using her own money to talk to this lady. I did not like that about him.
Cheapskate Monk.
Cheapskate Monk.
Cheapskate Monk. Okay, so one thing I didn't like, which I remember Will and Keiko saying this one, the volcanic tough pebbles. So remember, these are the pebbles that he goes, this is in this was in her driveway, and this pebble was in his driveway. So these have to be the exact same pebbles. He goes to the hardware store, and this guy who apparently works, this is like Ace Hardware or something like that, a store like that. This guy knows the name of the pebble, the company that sells the pebble, and that it's very rare, and it's one of their only like limited selection that's only sold to a couple people. I'm like,
okay, plot convenience.
What Ace Hardware or Lowe's or Home Depot, like I'm calling them all out, where could you ever go that anyone would know any type of information like that?
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Isn't the employee like young too?
No, he's an older guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's older.
Okay, I was like,
but
what?
Still, yeah, definitely. Let's see. Is there anything else? I have one more thing I didn't like.
I don't like when a lot of stuff that Stottlemyre doesn't make sense to me. So like when he says you wonder why you don't have your badge, I'm like, he's not having a psychotic moment.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you? He's just he's coming at you with an actual, like, he's trying to tell you about this case, dude.
It's basically, that's a low blow.
You're not,
like, that doesn't make sense why you would go there. Also, like, you escalated that.
He has a history with Monk. You don't know this in season. You don't know everything about the history in season 1, but you later find out that they have a history together. They used to get along really well, and that they worked together. And so just a lot of the stuff he does in season 1 doesn't make sense to me.
And that's why I think it's out of jealousy. Like, to, you know what I mean? Like, the deputy mayor's calling him the mayor. So he goes after and attacks his sanity, but really he's jealous. You know what I mean? He's jealous and he feels undermined. I think that's why they jumped that.
I did not like Stottlemyre.
But yeah, no, I don't like it. I'm just thinking of what were the writers thinking whenever they gave him these lines that don't really make sense. But yeah, so the last thing, something else I remember Will and Keiko talking about was the sting operation where the mistress actually gets into the grave, like the shallow grave, and they take her out there, and they're like, that would never happen. Okay. I kind of like, probably not, but I watch a lot of 2020, and if you watch some of those episodes, they're like, when they have these, a lot of the reason that these cases get solved is because they all have some like gung-ho police officer who's like, let's set up this crazy sting where blah, 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 and you're like, they can do that?
You would be surprised what people will admit under pressure. Like, one of my close family members, like I mentioned, is a police officer, and I'm not gonna give away any personal information just because I'm not sure if I'm really allowed to share this case, but it's fine. But basically, this guy was arrested for mildly assaulting someone. Like, he didn't kill him or anything, just kind of assault and battery, kind of. He was arrested for that, and my family member decided to kind of mess with him a little bit, to try to intimidate him just for funsies. And so, while he was doing that, he got this guy to confess to a murder that nobody knew about from a whole nother town. And so he went, hold on. What? And so he had to call in, like, his boss, and so he got this guy to admit to, you would be surprised as to what people will admit under pressure.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my favorite story to tell.
Well, it's a good one. That's a very interesting tidbit there. So
it's not totally unrealistic that they do that.
Yeah. Oh, okay, well. You showed me up with my 2020 stories. Okay, let's move on. So let's see, Savanah, you'll be doing your number 3 episode. So that means we're actually in our top favorites. So the ones that yeah, I'm looking at mine. Mine are actually my top 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So are yours
Awesome.
yours top 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, I'm excited.
Okay, so...
Oh, sorry. Also,
What?
sorry I had to interrupt. This is the end of part 1 for the season 1 recap. We hope you're enjoying the countdown and are joining us for part 2. So go ahead, just let it play. You'll thank me later.